Hello there. I'm sure you've heard of Hunter Biden being pardoned by his father Joe. Yeah, the president pardoning his son, and not just for the current offenses that he is uh, apparently guilty of, I guess, but also for any other wrongdoing committed in 11 years. That's quite a long time, and a very sweeping pardon. So the Washington Post says President Joe Biden's pardon of son Hunter for any offense over a nearly 11-year period doesn't have many, if any, direct historical parallels. It's one thing for a president to pardon his son, it's another to do it like this. I'm gonna stop here and say pardoning your son is already quite questionable, especially considering it's your own Department of Justice that, according to your position, is exceedingly politicized, and in my opinion, with good reason. If anybody remembers what they did to people even surrounding the January 6th debacle, or even someone central to it, like the guy with the funny buffalo hat, that after Tucker Carlson released the videos that they had the whole time, was shown to have done nothing wrong. The guy wandered through the Capitol surrounded by like 4 police officers at all times that opened doors for him, and then they decided to charge him and sort of make an example out of him. Of course, they released him once the videos were, released and everybody could see he didn't do anything. And it was the same for others as well, but there are many that are still imprisoned and abused by the justice system to this day. And I think it was very political. And that's not to mention Trump allies in politics, in business, members of his administration. Does anybody remember Roger Stone, a close Trump ally that was raided at dawn by the FBI along with a crew of CNN reporters? An old man living alone. Suddenly, an FBI raid team just descends on his house at dawn. Seriously, couldn't you have just filed a summons or something and he'd come? What was so special that you needed an entire raid? It was very performative. And this was not an isolated incident, it happened with a lot of others. So the Trump campaign, in my opinion, with good substantive reason, has claimed that the Department of Justice on the Democrat side is very politicized. There's also been many claims that serious crimes by Democrats are not being prosecuted. I'm not going to get into that right now, but suffice it to say that to an opposition that already feels as though you have bent the law like a pretzel, pardoning your own son doesn't look good. I think to anyone, pardoning your own son doesn't look good. But a pardon for literally anything you might have done wrong for 11 years, that's never happened in history. It says here, Biden didn't just pardon his son for his convictions on tax and gun charges, but for any offense against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2024. That's a nearly 11-year period during which any federal crime Hunter Biden might have committed, and there are none we are aware of beyond what has already been adjudicated, can't be prosecuted. It notably covers when he was appointed to the board of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma in 2014, all the way through Sunday, well after the crimes for which he was prosecuted. Hunter Biden hasn't been charged for his activities with regard to Burisma or anything beyond his convictions, and nothing in the public record suggests criminal charges could be around the bend. Congressional Republicans have probed the Burisma matter and Hunter Biden extensively and could seemingly have uncovered chargeable crimes if they existed, but haven't done so. Even still, the scope of the pardon is remarkable. Experts say there is little to no precedent for a pardon covering such a wide range of activity over such a long period, with the closest being Gerald Ford's 1974 pardon of Richard M. Nixon after Nixon resigned post-Watergate. Yeah, when you're pardoning a president, a former president for things he did while in office, where at least some of it would be protected, because again, anything that the president does as part of his official duties is protected. Obviously, you can't just, commit a serious crime in broad daylight and claim it's part of your duty to do so, but it's supposed to protect presidents from being attacked by their successors if they are from the other party, and essentially stop some sort of politicization of the justice system that would lead to a tear in the social fabric of the country, which I think is fair enough. But it seems as though it's completely different from what we're seeing right now, where you are pardoning not someone who, in an official capacity, carried certain duties to the state and might have done something wrong during that time. This is not some sort of peacekeeping measure. This is private. He's literally pardoning his own son. So Hunter Biden's pardon isn't tied to any special counsel investigation or charging document. Sam Morrison, who spent 13 years working for the Justice Department's Office of the Pardon Attorney, said via email, "The only pardon granted comes close." Experts pointed to several broad, preemptive, and blanket pardons that bear similarities, but they also feature some key differences. The language of the Nixon pardon cited crimes he has committed or may have committed, which is similar language, but because it's January 20, 1969 and August 9, 1974, so about 5 years. As noted, this is not Watergate specific, and the dates cover Nixon's entire presidency, but it's a period roughly half as long as that covered under Hunter Biden's pardon. There's also the fact that some of Nixon's actions might have already been exempt from prosecution by virtue of his role as president, something Hunter Biden doesn't benefit from. Jimmy Carter in 1976 pardoned most of those who dodged the Vietnam War draft between August 4, 1964 and March 28, 1973. That covered a large group of people, but the pardon was only for violating Military Selective Service Act and related regulations. There's other similar ideas, like, for example, Mormon polygamists that were pardoned for, breaking the law against polygamy, obviously. Andrew Johnson issued individual pardons for 30,000 Confederate soldiers after the Civil War, granting them clemency for all offenses by him committed arising from participation, direct or implied, in the rebellion. These individual pardons were issued by Johnson throughout his term, and particularly during its first 2 years. They reached back some 6-8 years, but they were specifically for a charge of rebellion, obviously. George Washington in 1794 for participants of the Whiskey Rebellion. The pardoned conduct was broad. The pardon was for those who had directly or indirectly engaged in the wicked and unhappy tumults and disturbances lately, and encompassed residents of several counties, but it was at least tied to one event. In short, there's a lot of examples, but none of them are this wide. None of them were for this long a period, and none of them cover literally anything you might have done at any point, instead of being tied to a specific event or conduct. They said that Donald Trump in 2020 pardoned former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn for any and all possible offenses arising from facts or circumstances that were in any matter related to Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller's Russia investigation, which is somewhat broad language. I will remind people that the Michael Flynn thing, a lot of people said that they were doing a witch hunt, that there was nothing to prosecute there, that the allegations were nonsense, and that the FBI agents claimed that he didn't lie, which was what the court, I believe, convicted him for, which is very strange, where your witnesses are essentially... Never mind. Suffice to say that the entire thing, at least to half the people of the country, appeared politicized and unjust. But fair enough, if you want to point out to somewhat broad clemency by Trump, let's give you this one. All the same, it was specifically for one investigation. It wasn't for literally anything he may have done in his life, or at least the 11 years. Flynn's pardon was broad, to be sure, but not nearly as broad as Hunter's, Morrison said. Yeah, and that's again related to one event, and it's still not as broad, and the other one was for 11 years. There is some question about whether such a broad pardon for unspecified crimes is constitutional, an issue that arose when reports indicated Trump might preemptively pardon family members at the tail end of his first term. I wonder, I don't particularly remember that any of them were later on prosecuted, so I'm not sure where that rumor came from. The Nixon pardon was not tested in court, but the Supreme Court said amid Johnson's post-Civil War pardons that the president's pardon power extends to every offense known to the law and may be exercised at any time after its commission, either before legal proceedings are taken or during the pendency or after conviction and judgment. It says here essentially that the Nixon pardon is the only precedent in modern times for such a broad pardon, which purports to insulate Hunter Biden from prosecution for crimes that have not even been charged. Some of the Trump pardons were also disruptive of ongoing prosecutions, but at least they were directed to specific charged conduct. So this is a rather dry and historical account of the presidential pardon from the Washington Post. BBC had a far more political analysis of it. They also brought the word of the current president, Joe Biden, saying, quote, "There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution," he wrote in a press statement announcing his decision. "In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it would stop here. Enough is enough." That's his justification for pardoning his son after promising not to do so. And it's very interesting, saying that there's been an attempt for 5.5 years to break his son. Weren't you in charge 4 years? Didn't you hold your own Department of Justice accountable? Why did you nominate these people? Why didn't you fire them if they were trying actively to break your son? If the Department of Justice is so corrupt and evil, according to your own words, why is it your Department of Justice operating under your auspice? So even Democratic governors like Jared Polis of Colorado quickly released a statement saying he was disappointed and that the move would tarnish the outgoing president's reputation. They are going here and showing you how many pardons were issued and commutations by each president. You can see that Barack Obama commuted an insane amount of sentences, unlike anyone else in history. And you can see that recent presidents haven't been using it nearly as much as previous ones. Joe Biden didn't really use pardons almost at all, it seems. He did commute sentences a bit more than Trump. What's interesting here is that they are trying to create some sort of equivalency. If you look at the closing paragraph, saying things like, the Trump camp was quick to issue a response to the news of the Biden pardon, saying that the president-elect would fix the US justice system and restore due process in his second term. It's something to keep in mind when Trump returns to office, as he is expected to again use his pardoning power to aid associates who have been prosecuted during the Biden presidency and to free many of his supporters who have been convicted during the January 6, 2021 riots at the US Capitol. Trump mentioned the January 6 cases when criticizing the Hunter Biden pardon, and is likely to cite the president's action when he issues his own round of pardons next year. Both sides will continue to accuse the other of partisan prosecutions and governing as though they are above the law. An American public that polls suggest already is skeptical of ethics in government may now be even more convinced that both sides share the blame. Which I honestly don't feel as though this is true. You didn't see when Trump was first president that his FBI just goes and, raids elderly Democrat houses at, at dawn with a Fox News reporting crew in tow. That didn't happen. It only happened for Trump supporters during Biden's reign. So I don't think the politicization of the Justice Department on the right has ever been nearly as bad as it is right now. Perhaps I am blinded by my own political affiliation, but it really feels to me as though Democrats have been above the law for 4 years now, and Republicans have been prosecuted to an insane degree. And well, the left likes to say that for someone who is used to privilege, equality feels like oppression. I think we're going to see that a lot happening to Democrats very soon. I don't think that they will be able to sweep under the rug the same kind of interesting activities that they've been engaged in so far. I'd say that there has been a corruption of, in general, all of the institutions by a certain group of people that, yes, they share political views, but I think what's more important is that they share the same financial backing. And I think this is something that the Trump administration must prioritize. If you see one person literally buying the district attorneys of, scores of different districts in the United States, I'm talking about George Soros, incidentally, obviously something is wrong here. There will be a certain flavor to the criminal justice system in the entire country, or at least in large swaths of it, if they are all in the pocket of one man. And I don't think that democracy can survive with, just a few people at the top being insanely rich and just buying everything. And you can see that the right is starting to sort of fire back with Elon Musk buying Twitter and now claiming that he might buy all sorts of media and entertainment companies. I'm talking about him claiming he might buy D&D, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, like Magic the Gathering, all sorts of, flagship products and names and IPs. And on the one hand, I don't want one person to own everything. I don't care if it's someone who is more on my side or not, if it's someone who's more benign or not. I am against the notion that power should be centralized to such a degree. I am against the notion that one person should have that much power over the entire society. And in my opinion, I remember seeing, which CNN reporter was it? Don Lemon, perhaps it was, who was basically saying when he covered the rallies of Kamala Harris, basically that they had in a large stadium upper floors, and he said that, well, up there the donors sit, and we don't know who they are, and they are the ones with the real power, and they'll decide. I think it was at the time where they weren't sure who's going to replace Joe Biden. Anyway, it was a very candid moment from him. And I thought to myself, this is exactly what's wrong with modern society. This is exactly what we have to prevent going forward. I don't want a couple of very rich individuals just sitting there that we don't know what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're thinking, and they just discuss among themselves and reach a conclusion and then force it on the rest of us. This is the complete opposite. This is oligarchy, complete opposite of democracy. So, in my opinion, the Justice Department has been a victim of this conduct just as much, if not more, than any other aspect of society. It really has to stop, and I hope that Trump will put a stop to it, as opposed to just bending it the other way, because just like in the case of Elon Musk, yeah, if you told me to choose between Larry Fink on one hand, owning everything, and Elon Musk on the other, I'd choose Elon over Larry, but I'd rather it was neither. So, do I think that a Trump Department of Justice being politicized against Democrats and for Republicans would be as bad as the Democrat one? No, I think it wouldn't be as egregious. I think they'd be a lot closer to the spirit of the law than the Democrats have been. But if they politicize it, it would still cause damage to the fabric of society going forward. It would still hurt the trust that people have in institutions. It would still cause another rift between Republicans and Democrats, when I think in the end it's supposed to be two groups that both care about the country together, that they care about each other, that they want a better future for their own country. That's what I'd like to see in my country, like two sides of the same coin that work together for the betterment of the whole. And it's not what we have. We have a very torn asunder political landscape, and so do you. So, in my opinion, in order to heal these wounds, absolutely you have to prevent politicization of the Department of Justice. I think the Democrats have not even tried. I think they've done the opposite. Full steam ahead, politicizing as much as possible. And I hope Trump does not fall into the same trap. Well, in my opinion, they didn't fall into a trap. They did it on purpose. They want to create a politicized, very politically charged environment in society. I hope that Trump is wise enough not to fall into the sort of temptation of fighting fire with fire, because usually I am for fighting fire with fire, but not here, because what you'll be doing is you'll be hurting our relationship with people who shouldn't be our enemies, and I'm talking about Democrat voters. People who don't support the ideas of nationalism, let's say, populism, they're not inherently bad people. They're just misguided. They're just in an echo chamber. We shouldn't hate fellow citizens who have fallen for the verbal and political traps of the left. We should try and help them have better lives, and hopefully they will see that we're not as bad as they think, that we can work together. The people who are our enemies are only the political leadership of these people, and while you probably should try and strike back at them for what they're doing in order to prevent them from doing any more harm and to bring them to justice for the harm they've already done, you should do it within the confines of the law, and you should be very meticulous about it in order to prevent them sort of making use of your attempt at justice to become martyrs to their own side. Anyway, that's about it from me. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.